Friends, today is Friday, August 1st, 2025. And I want to read to us today from Mark 12. This is Jesus being put to the test. The leaders are asking him, should we pay the Roman authorities or should we not? Knowing their hypocrisy, that they were trying to put him in an awkward position, they weren't really interested in answering the question. He said to them, "Why are you putting me to the test? Bring me a denarius and let me see it." And they brought one. And he said to them, "Whose head is this and whose title?" And they said, "Caesar's." And Jesus said to them, "Give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God's." And they were pretty amazed at him and his teaching. This is a famous passage, and Jesus was a difficult person to trap. They tried to trap him with the woman who was caught in adultery. In this case, they could build a case that he was a revolutionary if he encouraged people not to pay taxes. They could go back to the Romans and say Jesus teaching people not to pay taxes. If he encouraged paying taxes to the Romans, then he would be seen by some to be a collaborator. And so either way, his constituency would be divided. The Messiah, in general expectation, was going to come back and overcome the Romans. He was going to be a revolutionary. And so this was a test, but it was also a way of delegitimizing Jesus from the authorities. And he is very clever. So he first of all exposes the fact that they have Roman coins, and that they're not, in effect, the authorities are not over against the Romans because they're using Roman coins that have the image of the emperor on it. And some of these coins had an image of the emperor as a god, as being a divine god. And in that case, if you had a coin like that, from a Jewish point of view, you were legitimating the idea that the emperor was a god, and so you were breaking the commandment that you shouldn't make a graven image. So he's already putting them in a defensive position, and just by asking for this coin and forcing them to admit that they are carrying the coin that has Caesar's image on it. And then he does this clever thing. It's give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. Well, everything belongs to God, right? And so we're back to this question that Caesar can have a role under the authority of God if he's a legitimate ruler and he is seeking justice and he's fair, and you can play out a whole set of criteria there for what makes a government a legitimate actor in the world that is fulfilling a part of the divine purpose. But on the other hand, Caesar can be abusive and authoritarian and unfair as well. So that's I've given you a little bit of detail about this passage, but I want to kind of bring this back to the general theme of theft, and to say that the ability to earn and invest and save and share and create, in other words, economic freedoms, are connected to political and spiritual freedoms in any social setting. And when the government begins to control, when there's no private sector and there's no really security with private property, when the government becomes such a force in the economy that it has centralized control, then politics is corrupted, because politics becomes a spoils system, and people are rewarded on the basis of their relationship with the ruling authorities, and not on the basis of their ingenuity and their energy and their efforts and their abilities that they put into their work. Regulation and extraction become a way of or taxation become a way of elevating some and putting others down. And politics becomes a spoil system. And that's always a danger, so that economics and politics are always interrelated. The freedoms in those areas are interrelated. This is something just to be aware of as citizens in a democratic setting. We need to be able to hold government accountable for the way it is operating within the economic sphere. And it's always a delicate and difficult question, because we also need government to be there to prevent private enterprises from becoming so large and so strong and so monopolistic that they control whole sectors of the economy. And too much power is concentrated in the hands of a few that way as well. So the government has to be the business of regulation and constraining the private sector and taking resources from the private sector versus maintaining an area of economic freedom in which enterprise can happen and property rights can be respected. This is a big area of debate today in America. It's something we need to pray for and think about very carefully. Let's take a moment and pray. Gracious God, preserve individual freedoms and show us how to guard against all forms of exploitation and manipulation, whether they're public or whether they're private. We ask this in your Son's great name. Amen.